Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. For those that do not know me, my name is Srini Vogarala, and my presentation today is about Anna in the Tropics by Nilo Cruz. Like many of you, I've never heard of Nilo Cruz, so that leads to the obvious question of who is. In 1959, the Cuban Revolution, led by Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, allied against the US-backed government, which led to the deaths of many and replaced it with a social communist state. Nilo Cruz was born in Matanzas, Cuba in 1960 to a father who was a staunch opponent of the communist government, and his father was imprisoned for much of Nilo's childhood. The Cuban Revolution caused a massive upsurge in the people migrating to the United States. I think it's very important to have a historically relevant understanding because so much of the play, Anna in the Tropics, and even much of Nilo's life are heavily influenced by the turmoil that resulted from the Cuban Revolution. When Nilo was 10 years old, the family immigrated to the US into a little Cuban neighborhood called the Little Havana in Miami, Florida. He took an interest in acting and directing. He studied theater at Miami-Dade Community College. In 1994, he attended Brown University to earn a master's in fine arts. In 2001, he was appointed as a playwright in resident for the New Theater in Coral Gables. In 2002, he wrote his most famous work, Anna in the Tropics, which earned him great acclaim and made him the first Latino American to win the Pulitzer Prize. He is credited for introducing Latino plays into the mainstream, and Anna in the Tropics was immensely successful and was even nominated for a Tony Award in 2004. Nilo Cruz wrote many other plays, including The Color of Desire in 2010, The Hurricane in 2010, Two Sisters and a Piano in 1998, A Bicycle Country in 1999, along with many others. He wrote a musical called Havana. So the play that we're talking about today, Anna in the Tropics, is set in Yober City, which was the center of the cigar industry and a section of Tampa. When Cuban immigrants flowed into America, they brought along with them the cigar-making industry. Unique to this industry was that for every number of workers making the cigarettes, there would be a person called a lector. He was a man that stood in the center and would read newspapers, inform, organize, and entertain the workers. As you can see in the picture there, he is the man that's sitting on the elevated podium. In the play Anna in the Tropics, the lector, who is played by the character Juan Julian, is described as, quote-unquote, sensitive lector who captivates the dreamers in Santiago factory and who spreads his own passion for romance and language to those who will embrace it. Ironically, his fair and pleasant-spirited nature brings out intense emotions in all those around him. Although Juan is the so-called catalyst of the story, there are many other characters in the story that are the ones that undergo the change as a result of the lector reading the play. Santiago is the owner of the cigar factory. He is a fervent believer in keeping Cuban traditions in the factory alive, although he is plagued by gambling issues and struggles to protect and provide for his wife and two daughters. Then we have Ophelia, who is Santiago's wife. She is described as a strong and loving woman that keeps the family together. Then we have Cheche, who is the half-brother of Santiago. He's the long-lost half-brother of Santiago. He acts kind of like an anti-Santiago, in that he's very much interested in modernizing the cigar factory and is less interested in the customs and traditions of Cuba like Santiago is. Cheche is very bitter towards Han and his story because his wife had left him and eloped with a lector. Then we have Morella, who is the youngest child of Santiago and Ophelia, while Conchita is the older sister. Morella is an innocent person and believes in the romance of Anna Karenina. By the way, just a quick drop in. Anna Karenina is the book that the lector reads in the play Anna in the Tropics. Conchita relates to the characters in the lector's reading the most, and she's married to our last important character, named Palomo, who's a straightforward man, but he has an issue in terms of his relationship with his wife. He takes his wife for granted. So in much of the play, when Conchita develops somewhat of a fascination with Juan, then he starts taking her seriously. So it really fires up jealousy and all that. And yeah. Without spoiling the story for those of you that would want to watch it, I'll briefly explain the outline of the story. This is a very culturally rich play. It's about the creation of a new cigar, which the characters called Anna Karenina, and how that all takes place, and how the interrelationships between the various couples in the factory are completely changed when the new elector is hired in the factory. As always, Nilo Cruz, via the troubled marriages and opposing viewpoints of the characters, transports us with the power of his language, which leads us to the depths of the character's passion. The opening scene of the play, contrasts like two different approaches towards life. On one side, we have a violent approach to life, and the other side is the one through reason and logic. And violence is depicted by cockfighting, which subtly suggests that skill, cunning, and might always win. Although Cheche is a cautious man when it comes to gambling, he's someone that embodies the idea that physical power will triumph if reason should fail to persuade. Another spoiler alert: during the play, Cheche takes Morella by force when she ignores his glances. In the end, the young woman is pretty much rendered senseless from his assault, and when Cheche attempts to mechanize the factory, when those attempts prove unsuccessful, big spoiler, he takes a revenge by pretty much killing Juan, or he pretty much kills Juan because he blames Juan for upholding a tradition that he describes as something that has no practical application in the modern age. So when it comes to critiques, this is a very interesting play in the sense that it polarized two sides of the critics. There were people that absolutely loved it, and there were people that were not so much in favor of it. Matthew Murray said that Anna in the Tropics suggests that Cruz is a strong enough voice to merit careful attention in the future, and that his Pulitzer Prize will open doors that will allow him to create the truly unique, original play he's obviously capable of. That play, however, is not Anna in the Tropics. Despite its many virtues, it's nothing we haven't seen before. Charles Isherwood said that, quote, Nilo Cruz' subtly spiced period drama is not suited to Broadway. The play's emotional dynamics would be better served by embracing intimate space. And yet the venue alone is not to blame for the play's mild impact, more sleepy than steamy. The creamy texture of Cruz's writing tends to curdle in Emily Mann's coarse-grained production. So on the other hand, Margaret Bedenberg said that the plot is brilliantly set against the tragedy of Anna Karenina. The characters are both believable and colorful. Then we have Linda Weiner, who was a drama critic at Newsday. She was also one of the chair on the committee that awarded the Pulitzer Prize to Nilo. And she says that Anna in the Tropics is a, quote, luscious play, such a luscious play with rich imagery and a sense of myth and labor history. It takes us to a world we don't know. Maisha Bernson, also another juror on the committee, and a theater critic for Seattle Times, described Anna in the Tropics as, quote, lovely and kind of fragile, with archetypal universal characters. And finally, we have Catherine Osland, who was also a critic for this magazine called Curtain Up, says that in Princeton, says that the play, quote, romantic yet heightened, richly infused with tradition, Cruz plays quietly glows as it speaks of longing, family, jealousy, and love, end quote. This play is a very interesting play in that it really brings about so many emotions amongst the characters and also as the audience. And I hope all of you get the chance to see it, and it truly is an amazing play. And I would like to take a moment to thank everyone for listening to all of this, and I appreciate it. Thank you.